Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope you're doing really well in this moment in time, and that whenever and wherever you happen to be, on the planet or off world, I don't know where you live. I hope that you are able to utilize all angles of forgiveness. Now, we've talked about forgiveness a lot on the show, and there's some things that were brought up to me today that just really upset me. I wasn't mad or anything, not like that, but so I had a conversation with somebody who was trying to say, like, Jesus will forgive you, Jesus is your savior, Jesus will blah, 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 all this stuff about Jesus, right? And as we continued to talk, the person said that they were a Latter-day Saint, a Mormon. She was basically a Mormon. And I told her, wow, you know what? I've met a lot of Mormons. They're usually very good, upstanding people. And I applaud you for going outside of your religion to look into spiritual things. You know, that you're open-minded enough to look at this post. And I don't even remember what the post was. It might have been a Daniel Scranton, Arcturian channeling. I mean, it was something like outrageously open-minded for somebody who's raised in such an uptight religion. And so, but we started having this conversation, and I didn't want to just, attack her or whatever for something that she said is wrong. So I basically just gently reminded her some things, like she was saying that Jesus is a savior, and if you don't believe in him and you know better because you've heard of him, then you're definitely going to not go to heaven. And I'd hate for anyone not to go to heaven. That's what she was saying. And I was like, well, if I had the choice where I had to be a Christian or not go to heaven, I'd rather be sitting in hell with Jesus himself, because he himself was not a Christian. In fact, he was a Jew, which I've said several times on the show. But, but I know, quote unquote, scripture pretty well. I can't tell you what chapter or verse or whatever, but I have the general gist of the ideas in the Bible down, right? At least the New Testament, right? So we were talking, and the more we talked, she was saying that there's certain levels of heaven, and you can't get there unless you are, unless you have atonement, and what else did she say? And she said, and you have all your past mistakes and all your errors will add up. And, you have to be forgiven when you die so that you could be resurrected when you die, so that you can have immortal life that Jesus will give you when you die. And I was like, oh my God, so many things that I think are false that need to be unraveled. And I mean, I remember getting the Book of Mormon delivered to my house for free because I wanted to study the religion. And I remember reading about half a page before I just burst out laughing and I threw it away. I couldn't even bring myself to read it. It just, none of it was sensical. It just, for me, I mean, it just made no sense to me. And I was like, okay, whatever, I can never be a Mormon because I don't even agree with like the first 30 lines of the book. I was curious. I only got the book because I have cousins who are Mormon, and I was curious about what they believed. And, angels are not named moron. Usually angels have an EL at the end of their name, except for Melchizedek. There's one or two exceptions, Sandalphon. But usually angels have like EL at the end. So, I mean, if you were going to make up an angel name, Moronel would have been closer. But I don't know. I mean, the guy did a lot of mushrooms and then wrote this book. And that's a fact. I think it was mushrooms or weed. He did drugs to write the book. And he had to travel across the country because he was wanted in several, I think 14 states for having sex with minors. So, I don't know. It's something he continued on doing. It's not like he had it in his past and then repented and then whatever, he was fine and saved. It was a story of complete, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to get into the whole Mormon thing and the Joseph Smith thing, but it made me feel sorry for this particular individual. And I've been praying for her all day, ever since I read what she wrote. And she said that you can never get away from your past mistakes. You can never get away from your errors. And I'm thinking this is a grave error from her perspective, because whether or not you're even Christian or not, no matter who you are, no matter if you are a bona fide dyed-in-the-wool card-carrying witch like I am, hereditary witch all the way. But I was raised Christian. I'm not Christian. I stopped being Christian when I was 18. Do I believe in Jesus? Yeah, he's my brother. I've channeled him on the show. For all we know, Jesus is a Palladian, right? He came here, he already had the knowledge of stuff. He came from a very different set of circumstances spiritually than the average person. But I was trying to get across to her all the things that Jesus did. He said, you can do all this and more. And he also said, if thine eye be single, thy whole body be filled with light. This means meditation. How did he get there? He told you. He meditated. He literally explained how to meditate. If your eye be single, your whole body be filled with light. You close your eyes and you focus on your third eye. That's how you make your eye single. And then your body fills up with light. It literally does. Because then once you're looking at only you're looking inwardly to your third eye, literally your body will fill up with light. You could just witness it and it happens. You don't have to force it or pray for it. It just happens automatically. You sit in silence for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. And I haven't done it in a while, but I used to do it every day for years. And you start to see things and you start to know things, and the masters of light come to you and they start speaking with you, and you start to know and understand in a whole different level than what religions do. But Jesus gave all the clues, supposedly, things he supposedly said in the Bible. It's been watered down, bastardized, changed, 250,000 plus, versions of the Bible later. But some of the things that are in one usually are in the other, right? Especially the meditation instructions. He also said he'd come back. That's called reincarnation. He also ascended. That's a clue for all of us. If you're listening to me, chances are you either stumbled on it, you don't know what we're all about, or you are on the ascension path. Or maybe you are on the ascension path and you don't know it yet. But you are, if you're listening to me, and if you stick with it, you're going to have enough knowledge and information that's going to start sparking and triggering stuff inside your own DNA where you're going to go, oh, okay, I get it now. But this woman, I feel it like she's on the verge. She's just on the edge of awakening, And I see it, I could tell when people are right on the verge. I feel it. I had a conversation with someone that was in the Mormons a long time ago that they were on the verge, and I pushed her over the edge in a way that now she's very open to the spiritual stuff, and she loves herself finally. She realizes that it's okay to love yourself. There's some messed up things that come out of all religions. I'm not going to pick on the Mormons, but all religions have something that makes you feel super messed up inside. Most of the Christian churches I've been to, and I've been to several of them, because I've always been interested in how people meet divine in their life and how they work with it, and this lady kept saying, you got to worship. and you got to pray and you got to worship. And I'm like, if you had a relationship with your wife or your husband and all you did was ask them for things, ask them to help you, ask them to help you, ask them for a new car, ask them for a new house, ask them to make sure your child isn't going to be sick, and then you don't have any communication except now you're bowing down to them and worshiping them, but there's no real genuine interaction, is that going to be a relationship that lasts? Because I don't think so. So why would a relationship with God be any different, especially since we're created in His image? It doesn't make sense. But the thing that bothered me the most out of the things that she said was when she was talking about how you can't get to the highest level of heaven. I mean, what the flock she's talking about, I don't really know. It's probably a Mormon thing that she assumes everyone believes. So I just kind of let that one go. It's like, okay. But she said it depends on how much you've had atonement. And the way that she described it, she said some people, and I feel like she might mean herself, and I felt it on an identity level. And I was, I think, a little bit not really attacking, but provoking. I'm the Heyoka, baby, and this is what Heyokas do. I provoked her identity part of her because she believes all the great shit will happen after she dies. And she just hopes she's worthy enough of forgiveness at the end. And it made me so sad for her. And so this is what I'm talking about. The levels of forgiveness, this is what they are. You have to forgive other people for hurting you, no matter how they hurt you. I've had people cheat on me. I was just thinking about this today. My ex cheated on me in my own bed with my best friend while I went to work to pay for our rent. And it was a huge betrayal on both of their parts. So like the one person I would call to talk about a breakup, I couldn't call her because she was in bed with my boyfriend. Like he literally left me for her. And it was like some meme and I commented on it. It made me think about this because years later, just like this past year, I did a background check on myself and his name came up and her name came up. I'm like, what the hell does her name, why, she who betrayed me, who must not be named, why is she a part of my background check? And so I had to read that part to see what the hell is going on. And I guess they got married and then they got divorced, but because I had lived with him, I'd had bank accounts with him. So I'm now forever, on paper at least, tied to him, even though I haven't seen him in 20, 30 years. I mean, actually like 30 years I haven't seen him. I don't give a crap. He was a narcissist. He was a spiritual narcissist, like the more dangerous type. And so I guess he's now getting in trouble with the law in Georgia. He has a bunch of arrests in the past year, and he's always had a problem with cops. It's hilarious. But it's like people I didn't think about for like, it's been 25 or something years before he didn't care. And so that came up, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, that was a weird thing that came up today. But I realized that I forgave them a long time ago, and I remember the way that I started that, though, was with anger. And I forgave them. And I said, hey, I realize now, a little too late, the kind of people both of you are. And you deserve each other. And it was true. They just deserve each other. But they're both willing to betray me to be together. And without remorse either. I mean, except he did come back and he gave me a couple of gifts. He would show up at random places like a stalker and give me money. It was really creepy. I'm like, just leave me the hell alone. At this point, I mean, you already told me that you don't want to be with me. For me, it doesn't matter from your perspective, it shouldn't matter what happens to me. Like I could be stabbed in a back alley and bleed out. It's none of your business anymore. What happens to me if I become the Queen of Sheba tomorrow and become extremely wealthy or famous or what? None of that matters. You gave me away. You pushed me out of your life. You don't deserve to know what happened to me after this, right? You know, and and I felt really weird. Like, it was almost like I was looking through a peephole into their lives, and it was in my background check. It was so insane. Like, why is that even a part of my background check? It's hilarious, because as soon as I divorced my husband over like 11 years ago, the trail went cold. There was like nothing in my background check. I'm all, there you go. I left the country. You leave the country, you're not going to have anything on your background check anymore. But anyway, I forgave them. I just was like, they deserve each other, whatever. And when people sort themselves out of your life, just freaking let them. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. Just let it go. If people are so willing to leave, you let them. Hurry them up. Help them back. Bye-bye, Felicia. Because you don't need someone hanging around that doesn't want you. Because there's plenty of people in the world that do, right? So no matter what people do to you, you need to forgive them. You have to forgive them. And you don't do it to help satisfy their egos. You don't even have to freaking tell them that you forgave them. You just have to do it for you, to create your own peace of mind. And the second level of forgiveness is asking God to forgive you for things you've done, and asking other people to forgive you for things that you've done. You know, it's easier just to say I'm sorry right away than let it, fester for 10, 20, 30 years. Just forgive people. And ask their forgiveness of you. Now, it doesn't matter if they forgive you or not. If they say no, say, well, that's your burden you need to carry, but I unburdened myself when I asked for your forgiveness. And if you decide not to forgive me, that's your own baggage. But I gave up. I sat my bags on the curb. I'm walking away. But when they want to hold on to their own baggage, and they want to hold on to your baggage too, fine, take my bags. I don't care. I'm not carrying them. I'm going to walk lighter because I'm walking the path of light. You carry too much baggage, you can't walk the path of light. So you have to ask other people to forgive you. And it's to alleviate your own guilt, to some extent. But if you've hurt someone and they don't know it, don't ask for forgiveness and come clean. If it's something that they never have to know, it's probably better that they don't. So if you're a wife or a husband and you cheat on your spouse and it was a one-time thing, you're never going to do it again, you feel terrible, don't unburden yourself just to blow up your life and blow up their lives. But if you think that you did it because you don't really love them and it was wrong all along and there was no attraction, just let them have their life with somebody else who's going to love them the way they deserve. So don't ever cheat on someone and then just keep on cheating on them because you don't give if you're Donald Draper, stay single. Stay handsome, stay single, do what you do best. For Donald Draper, relationships just wasn't it. I just finished watching Mad Men this week. I can't believe I watched 7 seasons in 2 weeks. I'm just like, I can't believe, but I had to see. I love that show so much. The characters are so flawed, but it's so beautifully written, and the person who wrote it really understands people, or the people who wrote it really understand. I love it so much because the people are complex and they do grow as characters, and it's incredible to watch it. But so asking other people to forgive you when they know you've hurt them is, so don't just, by the way, I did da-da-da. If if it's like, hey, I stole your ring when we were in 3rd grade and it's been 30 years, that's okay. But, don't alleviate your own guilt and ask for forgiveness of something that is going to now give somebody else a scar or a wound for the next 20, 30 years, just don't do that. But if there's room to cheat in your relationship, you probably should leave the relationship. And don't say why, just say, look, don't say because I cheated on you or whatever, if they don't know. Just let it be. Let sleeping dogs lie in that case, right? But then there's another level of forgiveness, and I guess there's 4 levels, right? So forgiving others, asking others for forgiveness when you've done something wrong, asking God to forgive you when you've done something wrong. So you're clear with your spiritual connection with the Creator. And then the 4th level is forgiving yourself. And that one's the hardest one because you know what you did. You're always going to know what you did, right? Unless you had electroshock therapy or Alzheimer's disease, you're always going to know what you did. And so you got to get over it for yourself. But the way that you get over it, the way you forgive yourself is when you ask divine, when you ask God for forgiveness, and you really have a truly repentant heart, you're really sad about something, you have real remorse. It's not just, words being carried into the air and dropping back down to the ground, just when it's a real heartfelt energy. You really are asking for forgiveness, and you really mean it. God forgives you faster than this. Just faster than that. Lightning fast. It's an instant forgive. So this is how you forgive yourself. When you look at no matter what it is, you could have accidentally murdered 25 people, but probably no one listening to this has done that. Probably, chances are. It's like chances are you probably aren't listening to me if you are an evil person, doing horrible things, Probably the worst things that you've done are really not that big of a deal when you look at people like Hitler. He murdered 6 million, responsible for the deaths of 6 million people. I don't think that what you've done in comparison to that, but your guilt, you might feel, I don't think he felt guilty. I don't think he gave a crap. That's a huge difference. He was obviously a narcissist. He thought he was king of the frickin' world, right? But when you forgive yourself, this is what you do. If you know that God has forgiven you in an instant, and you know and accept that, and you've asked God, and you really ask God for forgiveness, and then you're still unable to forgive yourself, why are you second guessing God? Who gives you the right to judge God's judgment? Who gives you the right to say that God's opinion of you is crap compared to your own opinion of you? That's your own ego wanting to hold on to pain because it's addicted to the pain of the thing that you did. God already forgave you. It's over. It's erased. Boom, gone, done. Zip, zero, zilch. The scoreboard goes back down to 0. No more errors. No more mistakes. The slate has been wiped clean because you asked for forgiveness and God forgave you. Like lightning fast. So if you're not forgiving yourself still about some things, and you've already asked God to forgive, you need to let that shit go, because you're only putting yourself into a suffering mode, and whatever you're feeling in your life, God is feeling through your body. God is the all-knowing, all-seeing eye, but you are the experiencer. You are in a partnership with God, whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not. And you don't have to believe it from a bow down and worship and God's my savior and I have help and I'm helpless. I'm a helpless victim to the world mentality that most religions promote. You have to be active in this as well. You ask for forgiveness of God. God forgives you instantly. That means you have to follow suit. Because you are a spark of the great divine, by the way. You are God. You're not the whole of God. Otherwise, you could just open up a pomegranate tree growing out of your floor and pick a pomegranate off and eat it right now. If you can't do that, you're probably not fully God, right? But you are a spark of God. You're part of God. And because you're part of God, and when God forgives you, twin particle theory, let's bring in quantum physics. When God forgives you, you automatically have to forgive yourself. Because when you suffer, you're literally making God suffer as well. Could that be considered a sin? I guess only you can decide that for real. I definitely think it's wrong to not forgive yourself. You know, Christians are so fond of saying that Jesus forgave everybody's sins by dying on the cross, and yet they can't forgive themselves, which I think is a sin. That's like slapping their own version of Jesus in their mind in the face. Think about that. You're literally slapping God in the face when you refuse to forgive yourself. If you feel ashamed or guilty of that, feel it for a couple seconds and then let all of it go. Forgive yourself and get rid of the guilt and the shame. We've all made mistakes. If we were perfect, we wouldn't be here. We'd already be finished. And that's what we're doing right now. We're here to perfect ourselves. We're here to become better people. We're here to become masters. We're here to become masters. That's what we're here for. Now, it made me very sad about this lady because I just felt like the words that she used, she was saying some people, but usually when you say a friend of mine or some people, that usually means you. And it made me feel very sad. Like she really believes that she won't be forgiven until she gets to heaven. And it bothered me because I feel like a lot of people raised with a religious upbringing have the same idea. Even though Jesus talked about forgiveness all the freaking time. He talked about it all the time, and yet people still hold on to what they want to hold on to, which keeps themselves down and suffering, and keeps the world down and suffering. Don't do that. Just don't be that person. Be the person that's mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, spiritually stable. Be the person that has the ability to forgive others, to ask others for forgiveness. No matter what they do, they don't have to forgive you. And if they don't, whatever, it's none of your damn business anyway. You already asked. All you can do is ask. And if they say no and they won't hold grudge, that's because they are not living in the light. They're not taking the lighter path. And they also choose to walk in sorrow. So be the better person. Just ask for forgiveness. Really mean it when you say, I am sorry I did this thing. Don't say sorry, because it's a much different vibration than I'm sorry. Hone up to what you did. Be humble. Ask the other person for forgiveness. And if they don't forgive you, it doesn't even matter to you. You've asked. And then ask God, and God forgave you. And then you must forgive yourself. The 4 levels of forgiveness, guys. It's so important. And it just, there's a few different memes or whatever I saw on Instagram over the weekend about forgiveness, or about, not really about forgiveness, but about what people have done. If someone so-and-so did this to you, then do this, or just say this, or just act like this, or, we can do this, or, all these things, all these memes about, well, if so-and-so did this thing, I'm just going to do this, and I'm cool like that. And like, there's that one meme, women are born as angels, and if you hurt them enough, they drop their wings and they pick up their broom and they can still fly, because we're versatile like that. It's like those kinds of things. Like, there's so many memes about being hurt and hurting others and judging those who hurt others. And this is coming from a lot of spiritual people, supposedly spiritual people, that put out a lot of high vibrational messages, and then they pepper it with vibrational messages of a lower vibe, basically. I'm not gonna call it bad. It's just a vibration that's lower. And people are still hurt. People do a lot of memes about healing. What does it take to heal? You forgive others. You ask them to forgive you. You ask God to forgive you, and then you forgive yourself. That's the basis for the mass majority of emotional trauma and mental trauma. I mean, it might still remain a little bit, but once that forgiveness has been taken care of, that's the bulk of most things. If you've been raped, you've got to forgive that person for being a low conscious human. You don't have to be friends with them. You don't ever have to see them again. But if you do see them, you don't want to have the energy of, I'm going to pull out my gun and kill them. I got a bullet with their name on it. I've been holding on for 10 years, You have to move past it. Not for them. Fuck them. You got to move past it for you. People betrayed you. A lot of people betrayed me in my life. So a lot of bad things have happened to me in my life. Being given away at birth, being abused, being kidnapped in Mexico. I mean, when I was a little kid, all kinds of crap has happened to me. Being robbed in Colombia, almost dying by someone who I was becoming friends with. My kids and I almost starved to death in Colombia. And because he had taken my card, I couldn't pay my storage fee, and a month after I didn't pay it, they didn't bother to tell me, and they sold off everything I owned. And when I called a couple months later, I realized they hadn't been taking it out of my bank account, because my computer had been robbed. Like, everything had been taken away from me except for my cell phone, my old house cell phone. Like my camera, everything was gone. And literally within I guess about a 2-month period, literally everything I owned was gone, except for my house in Detroit. And ironically, a lot of stuff in my house, and my doors are wide open, and no one's taken my stuff. It's so weird. I am grateful to God. I had angels. I blessed the hell out of that place. I did a lot of ceremony in that place. And I said, please keep all my stuff safe. All my kids' stuff safe. And someone just took pictures of my house because my door's open. He went in and took pictures for me and sent it to me. And I was like, oh my God, our bicycle, my son's bicycle is still in the living room. My bed, my couch is still there. It's like, damn. Even my furniture, my $600 beds, I have 3 of them. And they're all still there. What? Crazy stuff. But, yeah, you just gotta forgive. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. 2 parts of the 4 phrases of the Ho'oponopono process is related to this. So we could easily say it's 50% of your experience on Earth. 25% being grateful, 25% dealing with love. 50% asking for forgiveness and forgiving others. I'm feeling repentant about it. And the other thing was about her thing when she said people have to make atonement. And I haven't heard back from her yet, but I said, look at the word atonement. It means at one meant. When you become one with your Creator and you are 100% at one-ment with Him, her if you wish, Divine Mother, whatever, or them. When you are 100% in alignment with your at one-ment with God, that's when you realize you're okay. You don't need to feel guilty anymore about your past because God already forgave you. There is no past. There is no, I mean, it kind of exists, but mostly it's in your memory, right? I mean, if I could easily travel along my own personal timeline, I would go back and get my favorite car that I sold. I'd go back and get my racing car. It was a Chrysler Sebring, so it wasn't like a full-on race car, but I mean, oh, she could haul ass. Oh, she was such a pretty beauty of a car. Black, sleek, sexy. Oh, what a sexy car. Seriously, I took so many pictures of her. I love cars, though. I'm kind of a car lover, but even though I don't own a car now, and I haven't had a car in 6 years, but, oh, she was a beauty. Oh, I wish I could go back in time and grab it. I need to forgive myself for giving her up, but I needed to. I did it, so I sold her so I could take my kids to a seminar where they learned how to have their own business. It was worth it. I sacrificed something I absolutely loved so that my kids, and they still use those business principles today. They got to learn directly from Laurel Langmeyer. It was worth it. Laurel's awesome. Very sweet person. She adores my kids, so it kind of worked out. But yeah, so anyway, that's my 2 cents for today, just it's all about forgiveness, even if you don't love me anymore. That's what the song says, right? Even if you don't love the other person, not like on that level anymore. But you do have to continuously love everyone on the planet, and that involves a shit ton of forgiveness. If you could love Hitler, if you could love Bush's and all the wars it created, if you could love Trump in spite of his being such a stupid person and making the stupidest comments, but I forgive him. God bless him. He's old. He's old. He's a narcissist, whatever the hell that happened that made his mind wrong. I forgive him. He sure as shit shouldn't be president, but I forgive him. And I forgive all those assholes out in the world that are in the KKK and the really evil people. I don't forgive them for them. I forgive them because I can't hold on to that. I can't hold on to the crap they're doing in the world. The person who created COVID-19 in a laboratory, I forgive him. Never gonna invite him to my house for dinner. I'll never pay for his ticket to go to the movies. I forgive him and I love him, for he knows not what he does. What he did. Not really. I didn't give you guys COVID-19 news last week, by the way, on Friday. It's so weird. It did go down from 21% to 20% deaths. So I wanted you guys to know that. It's a slightly sliver of positive news there. There's a lot of weird things around this virus, but there's something good. Like my son was talking about, there's less cars, so now it's colder outside. The climate, the greenhouse gas effect, the global warming thing, greenhouse gas, whatever. It's actually getting better. And I did mention that last week. And there's something else that was good that's coming out of this. Besides us being alone, we have to face ourselves. Every stinking divine masculine, divine feminine, twin flame reading I see on the people I follow on Instagram, because people are doing straight up readings for the collective all the time. I have like 3 or 4 people I follow that are like uncannily accurate when they talk about like the divine masculine has been, and if this doesn't apply to you, that's okay. Just, let it fly. Just let it fly by if that's not for you. But, just you could take it in only if it rings true. But I guess the divine masculines that are now spiritually awakening are like, they feel the connection. They know there's something there. They know about the telepathy. They feel a feeling, but they're scared and they're doubting themselves, which, welcome to the club. Everybody's doubting themselves spiritually, right? It's like you have days where you're like, you know what you know, and that's it. And then the next day you're like, I kind of do sound like a kook, right? Like somebody calls you and what have you been up to? I've been doing good in spite of the ascension symptoms, and I'm having all this energy flow through my body, and I'm constantly trying to navigate the real world while simultaneously helping spirits that died of coronavirus going to heaven. And also I've got these ETs stopping by. You sound like a freaking lunatic, right? If you're super honest with people about what you're really experiencing, you sound like you're freaking out of your mind. You flipped your lid, baby. Even though you haven't, but you sound like it. And you hear it as the words are leaving your mouth. You hear it. Most of us don't have very many people to talk to about this shit because it's like we sound like we're freaking out of our mind, man. So it's so hard to have a conversation with anybody these days. It's just so hard. But we are, the divine masculine is kind of coming to the conclusion that they do feel this impending love. It's imminent. It's on its way. They're scared of it because they don't understand it. And it's hard for us all, even me. It's hard for all of us to understand. I've known about twin flames for 15 years. Maybe 12 years. I think I heard about it in 2005. Oh my God, it's been 15 years. Holy man. Yeah, so I learned about this in 2005, I think. Maybe 2006. So maybe like 14 years ago. But still, it is so frickin' big. You think there's 7.7 billion people on the planet, and only one of them is my twin flame. How the frick are we ever going to meet, right? It seems absolutely impossible, and yet I met all my soulmates. And what happens is once you are ready and you start to vibrate at the same rate, it's like a freight train. You can't stop it. Nothing you could do about it. It's on its way. I feel that my guy's on his way. I just feel he's on his way. We are talking so much via telepathy. Not today as much, in the morning a little bit. But I mean, he's contacting me now via telepathy. It's not always me contacting him. I'll hear him asking me a question. And sometimes I'll ask him a question and he doesn't respond. And sometimes, but now I can ask him a question, he'll respond usually. You can't always be stuck in your head thinking about what the other person might be thinking or asking you, but it's getting better. In fact, tonight I'm going to read a book that I just found about telepathy by William Walker Atkinson. This good old Swami. We're gonna listen to this. He was a lawyer in New York back in the day, and he wrote a book. It's a lesson book, so we have 8 lessons to get through, and hopefully we could get this done in 8 weeks. Maybe it might take 10, but we're gonna try to get through it. 1 lesson a week for the next 2 months. For 8 weeks. And if we could get through it, by the end we should know how to telepath. So if this is something that has not come online for you, we're going to go over the lessons of how to do it, how to receive the energy, and I might even find a better way to do it. So I'm excited. We're going to learn something. It's not going to be 33 weeks, though, for sure. That other book was so long. I had no idea how long it was. But I had to read it. When I saw the movie Kardec on Netflix, I freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, I got to read you guys this book. Because I wanted to read it for me, but I wanted to share it with you. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank God we're done with the Spirit's book. 33 weeks in a row. But we're going to talk about telepathy tonight. But before we get to that, I wanted to tell you some cool things from spaceweather.com. First of all, solar wind speed is 404.5 kilometers per second, but there is no coronal holes right now, so there's nothing flowing towards Earth, at least solar wind-wise. Now, usually I tell you that the sun is blank and there's no sunspots, but today, oh my God, there's something brand new, and this is fun. 2 solar cycles are active at one time. That's what it says on spaceweather.com. Today there are 2 sunspots in the sun's southern hemisphere. Their magnetic polarity reveals something interesting. They come from different solar cycles. So if you look at the magnetic map of the sun's surface with the sunspots on the inset here on the picture on spaceweather.com, it says taken from NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, and you can see that the polarity on AR2760 is the name of the sunspot, is negative on the left and positive on the right, while 2761, the very next sunspot that came up, is positive on the left and negative on the right. It's the opposite. Now, this is how you know that they're from 2 different solar cycles. One, like the old solar cycle 24, and then the new solar cycle 25, and you know it because of Hale's polarity law. So when the signs are reversed, it marks them as belonging to different cycles. It's just the way that the polarity is, like, you know, the north and the south poles, like in a magnet, you have a plus and a negative, you know, or a minus sign on your batteries to tell which, you know, the positive end goes into the positive part of, you know, your remote control or, you know, device that you use battery in. Anyway, so it's kind of the same thing as the polarity. It's like a magnetic polarity. So it's normal because solar cycles always overlap at their boundaries, and the solar minimum always comes along with the old and the new cycle sunspots at the same time. But it's rare to see it, and so you can go see it on this picture. It's pretty interesting. Sometimes they pop up simultaneously, and we might see more combinations in the months ahead, they say, as we slowly grind our way now through the deepest solar minimum that we have had in a century. Can you believe that? This is like the biggest solar minimum in 100 years. Crazy. The simultaneous appearance of 2 solar cycles does suggest a type of temporary balance. In fact, the tipping point may already have been reached. So far this year, there have been 7 numbered sunspots only. Oh my God. And 5 of them have come from solar cycle 25, which is the new solar cycle. So, slowly but surely, they say solar cycle 25 is coming to life. If you want to go check out a really cool picture taken from Oulu, Finland, there's also a beautiful picture of the aurora borealis, as well as the alignment of the moon and Venus, and also the Baltic Sea that is still frozen. So it's kind of a beautiful picture at twilight that somebody got to take when they were out and about. Oulu, neutron counts coming out of Oulu, Finland, speaking of, they've had a 0.1% change in the past 48 hours, and they are at 10.9%. They're very high. So we have a lot of cosmic radiation coming in from the cosmos, nothing coming from the sun, though, at least for now. There were reported 6 fireballs over the United States today, according to NASA's All-Sky Fireball Network. And that's pretty much all the space weather news to report right now. Pretty cool though. I mean, what if you were out in the sun today? Did you feel a balance? Was there a balancing energy? Maybe that's why. Maybe that's what the sunspots are doing. Maybe it's a balancing act. I kind of felt good today, overall. I mean, balanced emotionally anyway. Except I was sad for that lady, but not overly so. I felt really balanced. You know, when I think back on it, I felt really like tons and tons and tons of energy pouring in today, though. For the past several hours, I'm finally cooling off a bit, but I just felt like I was receiving a lot of energy. I think that's pretty neat. All right, disclosurenews.it. It's literally just 24, not a whole lot going on. Over the weekend, though, someone reported it was like 140. So let me look in here and see. Do I even see that? I know it was 138, which is very high for Italy. In general, it's not terribly high compared to other numbers we've seen. A lot of people have been and will continue to report that we've had the greatest number ever on the Schumann Resonance. So not true. The highest number I've ever seen on the Schumann Resonance on heartmath.org was February 7th when Hululu, South Africa did have 737.5 hertz frequency on the Schumann Resonance scale. So that's enormous. That's literally over 100 times higher than what the baseline of Earth's natural normal frequency has been over the past 100 years. So when you hear it from me, you know you're informed. You could also go check it out on heartmath.org to prove what I'm saying to people is true. When you go to their magnetometer page, it's GCMS magnetometer, Schumann Resonance's power. That's what it's called. And it's a graph. And there's something wrong with it today. I don't know why, because like on Friday I was able to access it, but it only goes up to March 4th now. Ironically, it's a command as well as a date, March 4th, and yet it hasn't March 4th to April 27th suddenly out of nowhere, and I don't know why. It's very weird. I keep trying to get it. I've several times in a row have I tried to play with this and try to get it, you know, the chart to read today, or at least over the weekend. I want to know what happened, and it's just not showing anything, and I don't know why. But hopefully it will get fixed soon. And it's just, yeah, I keep trying to do it, and it's just not. So we're going to not do that part today. We're going to go to the next thing. ACIM.org is the Foundation for Inner Peace website. In A Course in Miracles, we are currently on lesson 283. And I'm just going to read that for you now. My true identity abides in you. Father, I made an image of myself, and it is this I call the Son of God. Yet is creation as it always was, for your creation is unchangeable. Let me not worship idols. I am he my Father loves. My holiness remains the light of heaven and the love of God. Is not what is beloved of you secure? Is not the light of heaven infinite? Is not your Son my true identity when you created everything that is? Now we are one in shared identity with God our Father as our only source, and everything created part of us. And so we offer blessings to all things, uniting lovingly with all the world, which our forgiveness has made one with us. My true identity abides in you. My true identity abides in you. So there you have it. Lesson 283 for A Course in Miracles. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, guys. And when I come back, we are going to hear from William Walker Atkinson. And we're going to be reading the book called Practical Mind Reading, a course of lessons on thought transference, telepathy, mental currents, mental rapport, etc. Right after this message. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's high time you did. It is the absolute easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's absolutely free. Second of all, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. You guys have known that I've been doing this for 8 months using the Anchor.fm app right on my cell phone, and I have done it everywhere, right? I have recorded this in my living room, my bedroom, little cafes in Quito, Ecuador, all over Cuenca. It's so absolutely easy to make your podcast, and editing is just a snap. Anchor also will distribute your podcast for you, and it took me about 2.5 months to become syndicated, and now I'm available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more, and so can you. You can make money from your podcast also, and there's no minimum requirement. You get paid from your very first listener. It is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So please, if you are interested in making a podcast of your very own, do not hesitate to start with Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. All right, guys. William Walker Atkinson wrote this book that we're going to read tonight. 113 years ago is when it was published by Leal Publishing. And then later, it was republished again published and sold by Advanced Thought Publishing Company out of Chicago, Illinois. So this book was written by William Walker Atkinson. I believe was a lawyer in New York City. And the first book we read by him was actually Swami something was the name of the author, and it took me a few weeks to realize that it was actually William Walker Atkinson. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. But he wrote a lot of practical books that will help people on their spiritual journeys and all the spiritual things that they want to explore and discover. And so we're going to go over this tonight. The name of the book is Practical Mind Reading, and it is a course of lessons on thought transference, telepathy, mental currents, mental rapport, etc. And it contains practical instructions, exercises, directions, etc., capable of being understood, mastered, and demonstrated by any person of average intelligence. So in a way, it's a 113-year-old book of practical mind reading for dummies. No, I'm just kidding. But if someone of average intelligence can understand it, that means that we can all understand it, basically. So there are 8 lessons here. And we're going to go over lesson 1 right now. We're only going to do 1 lesson per week because it's something that I think needs to soak in. And if there's exercises we should do it for a week. And so we'll do this for 8 weeks. Lesson 1 is called The Nature of Mind Reading. Only a few years ago, the general public was in almost total ignorance of the great truth of thought transference, thought projection, telepathy, or mind reading. It is true that here and there were to be found a few scientists earnestly investigating and eagerly uncovering the hidden truths concerning the subjects. But the mass of the people were either entirely ignorant of the subject or else were intensely skeptical of anything concerning the matter, laughing to scorn the daring thinker who ventured to express his interest or belief in this great scientific phenomena. But how different today. On the hands we hear of the wonders of thought transference, or telepathy as it's called. Scientific men write and teach of its fascinating manifestations. And even the general public has heard much of the new science and believes more or less in it, according to the degree of intelligence and knowledge concerning the subject possessed by the individual. Listen to these words from the lips of some of the greatest scientists of the day. Professor William James, the eminent instructor at Harvard University, I've read some of his books. This guy was super complex, hard to understand at times, probably because he was from Harvard. All right. So this is what Professor William James, the eminent instructor at Harvard University, says. From when our present advanced standpoint, we look back upon the past stages of human thought, whether it be scientific thought or theological thought, we are amazed that a universe which appears to us of so vast and mysterious a complication should ever have seemed to anyone so little and plain a thing. Whether it be Descartes' world or Newton's, whether it be that of the materialists of the last century or that of the Bridgewater treatise of our own, it is always the same to us, incredibly perspectiveless and short. Even Lyell's, Faraday's, Mill's, and Darwin's consciousness of their respective subjects are already beginning to put on an infantile and innocent look. Wow. Is that because he went to Harvard? No. Your work is entirely innocent. What? An infantile? What? That's kind of rude, man. All right, without calling this guy a narcissist, we're moving right along. Anyway, back to William Walker Atkinson. These remarks, he says, are doubly significant by reason of their having been made by Professor James as the president of the Society for Psychical Research. Now, you guys have heard about this, the Society for Psychical Research. Well, this is what our last book, the guy who wrote our last book, he was a part of this. Allan Kardec, he was a part of the Society for Psychical Research. So I wonder if all these people knew each other. Well, they probably didn't, though, because Allan Kardec, he wrote his book 163 years ago. And this is 50 years later. I wonder if that's still around. I mean, man, that was around a long time, right? Society for Psychical Research. Anyway, the eminent English scientist, Sir William Crookes, in his address as president of the Royal Society at Bristol, England, a few years ago, said, "Were I now introducing for the first time these inquiries to the world of science, I should choose the starting point different from that of old, where we formerly began. It would be well to begin with telepathy, with the fundamental law, as I believe it to be, that thoughts and images may be transferred from one mind to another without the agency of the recognized organs of sense. That knowledge may enter the human mind without being communicated in any hitherto known or recognized ways. Although the inquiry has elicited important facts with reference to the mind, it has not yet reached the scientific stage of certainty, which would enable it to be usefully brought before one of our sections. I will therefore confine myself to pointing out the direction in which scientific investigation can legitimately advance. If telepathy take place, we have two physical facts: the physical change in the brain of A, the suggester, and the analogous physical change in the brain of B, the recipient of the suggestion. Between these two physical events, there must exist a train of physical causes. Whenever the connecting sequence of intermediate causes begins to be revealed, the inquiry will then come within the range of one of the sections of the British Association. Such a sequence can only occur through an intervening medium. All the phenomena of the universe are presumably in some way continuous, and it is unscientific to call in the aid of mysterious agencies when, with every fresh advance in knowledge, it is shown that ether vibrations have powers and attributes abundantly equal to any demand, even the transmission of thought. And you just gotta laugh when they say fresh advance in knowledge when you're reading it 113 years after the fact. But I still think it's relevant today, just to make me laugh. It's like fresh. It's not that fresh, dude. It's so stale, it's refreshed by now. Ether vibrations also cracked me up. Ether. They talked about ether a lot. I think it's awesome. It's an awesome word. It makes me feel weird and nostalgic and in a really strange way. No one talked about this when I was a little kid, so it's like nostalgic for another life or something. I don't know what, but ether vibrations. But I think that this still is all very relevant, right? Let me ask real fast. Is the knowledge in this book above 92% understanding? Is it relevant today above 98%? Is it relevant today at 100%? Yeah, this book and the information therein is 100% relevant today to us, even though there's hilarious things like it's a fresh advance in knowledge. Or they're saying things like ether vibrations, which it's not a phrase anymore in common, idioms. Not anywhere on the planet. So it's it just cracks me up. Anyway, moving right along. Professor Crooks then went on to say, it is supposed by some physiologists that the essential cells of nerves do not actually touch, but are separated by a narrow gap which widens in sleep, while it narrows almost to extinction during mental activity. What? I don't think this is real. I just don't think this part is real. I mean, I took a lot of classes on the brains of people, brain and behavior, neuropsychology, and human anatomy, this was never mentioned. What the hell? There is a narrow gap, and what happens is there's the axons are really long, and then the dendrites look like a round cell with little tiny, it looks like a sun. It's like little projections coming off, and the axons shoot the energy into the dendrites, and the dendrites grab that energy, and then the energy is like little packets of information, which is literally in chemicals that are released. And that's when we say that, we have endorphins. That's an example. Neurotransmitters, basically. They're transmitted from the axons across the gap, and they kind of swim across, and they get picked up by the dendrites. And at night, there's less activity because you're sleeping, but there's more activity in the parts of your brain that dream and think and reason things out. and your autonomic nervous system is always working no matter what you're doing. It's kind of funny how they're thinking about that, though. Very weird. All right, moving right along. This condition is so singularly like that of a Branly or Lodge coherer, a device which has led Marconi to the discovery of wireless telegraphy, like the telegraph, basically, as to suggest a further analogy. The structure of brain and nerve being similar, it is conceivable that there may be present masses of such nerve coherers in the brain whose special function it may be to receive impulses brought from without through the connecting sequence of ether waves of appropriate order of magnitude. That's a really interesting idea, right? I don't think it's totally accurate, but I kind of feel like it's a really good explanation anyway. Anyway, moving right along. Röntgen has familiarized us with an order of vibrations of extreme minuteness compared to the smallest waves of which we have hitherto been acquainted, and of dimensions comparable with the distances between the centers of the atoms of which the material universe is built up. And there is no reason for believing that we have here reached the limit of frequency. It is known that the action of thought is accompanied by certain molecular movements in the brain, and here we have physical vibrations capable from their extreme minuteness of acting direct upon individual molecules, while their rapidity approaches that of the internal and external movements of the atoms themselves. All right, that's interesting. Okay, so what I thought about while I was reading that was twin flames. We were originally one soul, and we were split in half to a male and a female, or positive and negative, not like negative attitude, but just the polarity, positive and negative, basically male and female, and put into separate bodies. And we've been on this massive karmic thing for some of us a long time, some of us stubborn people a very long time, and some of us not as stubborn, just 1 or 2 lifetimes. But now that we're coming back, it's like twin particles. We are twins, literally. Our souls are made from the same substance, and so therefore maybe it's easier for twins to telepath with each other than it is for the rest of us to telepath with the other people. I still telepath with my kids a little bit, but mostly with my twin. And obviously the people I channel, God and whatever, but all right, we're going to keep moving on because I hope that they talk about I'm so excited about this book. Okay, let's get into it. So, I don't know, what do you guys think about that? The twin particle theory as it is relating to telepathy. Maybe we have the ability to hear our twin easier because maybe there's a quantum mechanic explanation of this. It's not just spiritual, because it's all the same metaphysical. It's the point where science meets spirituality, is metaphysics. I hope you guys are catching this wave I'm sending out, baby. Anyway, let's keep moving on. Okay. A formidable range of phenomena must be scientifically sifted before we effectually grasp a faculty so strange, so bewildering, and for ages so inscrutable as a direct action of mind upon mind. It has been said that nothing worth the proving can be proved, nor yet disproved. True, this may have been in the past. It is true no longer. The science of our century has forged weapons of observation and analysis, which by the veriest tyro may profit. Science has trained and fashioned the average mind into habits of exactitude and disciplined perception, and in so doing has fortified itself for tasks higher, wider, and incomparably more wonderful than even the wisest among our ancestors imagined. Like the souls in Plato's myth that follow the chariot of Zeus, it has ascended to a point of vision far above the earth. It is henceforth open to science to transcend all we now think we know of matter, and to gain new glimpses of a profounder scheme of cosmic law. In old Egyptian days, a well-known inscription was carved over the portal of the Temple of Isis. I am whatever has been, is, or ever will be, and my veil no man hath yet lifted. Not thus do modern seekers after truth confront nature, the word that stands for the baffling mysteries of the universe. Steadily, unflinchingly, we strive to pierce the inmost heart of nature from what she is, to reconstruct what she has been, and to prophesy what she yet shall be. Veil after veil we have lifted, and her face grows more beautiful, august, and wonderful with every barrier that is withdrawn. Camille Flammarion, the eminent French astronomer, is a believer in thought transference and mind reading, and has written the following expression of his convictions on the subject. We sum up, therefore, our preceding observations by the conclusion that one mind can act at a distance upon another, without the habitual medium of words, or any other visible means of communication. It appears to us altogether unreasonable to reject this conclusion if we accept the facts. There is nothing unscientific, nothing romantic, in admitting that an idea can influence the brain from a distance. The action of one human being upon another from a distance is a scientific fact. It is as certain as the existence of Paris, of Napoleon, of oxygen, or of Sirius. He wrote the name of the star, Sirius. The same authority has also said, there can be no doubt that our psychical force creates a movement of the ether, which transmits itself afar, like all movements of ether, and becomes perceptible to brains in harmony with our own. The transformation of a psychic action into an ethereal movement, and the reverse, may be analogous to what takes place on a telephone, where the receptive plate, which is identical with the plate at the other end, reconstructs the sonorous movement transmitted, not by means of sound, but by electricity. We have quoted at length from this eminent authority to show once and for all that this great science of mind reading is recognized and approved of by the highest authorities on modern science, and also to give our students the benefit of the current scientific theories upon the subject. In this work we have but very little to say about theory, but shall confine ourselves to facts and actual instruction. Science knows and has proven that thoughts may be and have been transmitted from one mind to another, in some cases over thousands of miles of space. But it has not as yet solved the mystery of the why of the subject, and contents itself with explaining the how. The nearest approach to a correct theory seems to be the one which compares the mind with the wireless telegraph. and which supposes that the vibrations of thought travel through the ether, just as do the waves of this high order of electricity. The mind of one person acts like a transmitter of the wireless telegraph, while the mind of the other acts as a receiver of the same set of instruments. There are undoubtedly vibrations set up in the brain when one thinks, and there are undoubtedly waves of thought, just as there are waves of electricity. Science informs us that there is an increase of temperature in the human brain during periods of thought activity, and also that there are constant chemical changes in the structure going on when the brain cells are active. This is akin to the generation of electricity in a battery, and undoubtedly acts in the same way in producing vibrations and then transmitting them to the brain of another. Sir William Crookes, in the address just quoted, points out the direction of the scientific theories concerning the matter. But this is all that we shall have to say about the theory of mind reading. We shall now pass on to the actual practical instruction. The student is asked, however, to always carry in his mind the fact that mind travels in waves from one brain to another, just as electricity travels from the transmitter to the receiver. By holding this picture in your mind, you will have the whole practical theory in condensed form right before you, so that you may be able to act accordingly. All right, so concludes the first lesson. So just think about that, contemplate that for the week. Here's what it says in the table of contents to, reiterate. The nature of mind reading. A plain, practical, scientific explanation of this vast, mysterious subject, explaining the action of mind upon mind and the mental wireless telegraphy, according to the latest and best authorities. Now, this is, of course, 113 years old. But next week, we're going to go over lesson 2, which is the proofs of mind reading. So we're going to talk about indisputable facts and practical proof. I like how this seems like a very special subject that's so spiritual, but at the same time, they approach it from a scientific and research point of view, and I love that. I love that. So, all right, next week is lesson 2, and they talk a little bit about Mark Twain. I'm looking ahead a little bit. Speak of the devil and his imps appear. Oh, that's... I love that. And it says, speak of angels and you hear the rustle of their wings. Well, what is that relationship to? You're going to find out next week. When we go over lesson 2, the proofs of mind reading. So, even if you don't have time to read books, at least I'm here to read them for you. At least some books, the spiritual books. A lot of times, I've always wanted to read these old books, and I just could never get into them. And when I lived with my husband, I've read a couple of the books, or at least a few chapters here and there in his books, but sometimes they smelled weird, like when books have a weird smell when they get old. And so I didn't totally get into it. He had a lot of William Walker Atkinson. Some of them were actually first editions, so he had an incredible collection. I think his family put it all in storage for my kids, maybe. I don't even know what they're doing, but he had an incredible collection. I hope Someday I could get my hands on it, but I doubt I ever will see it again. But in the Gutenberg, I'm reading this, by the way, from Gutenberg.org. This is the Gutenberg Library. They do a lot to preserve old books. They put them in digital form. You can read them for free. These are books that either don't have a copyright or have complete permission, to republish and reprint, or they're outside of the copyright laws, and that means they're over 80 years old. But there was like a massive renaissance, like over 100 years ago. In the past couple hundred years, there have been just a mass awakening of minds and people that were intellectual but considering matters of spirit in a scientific way. And that's where you get all the greatest metaphysicians they're considered to be modern metaphysicians, but they're like 100 to 150 up to 200 years old. And I really appreciate this old stuff, because some of the stuff, even though the language is old-fashioned and a little bit awkward sometimes, it's actually really, like, they put a lot of thought into this. I don't know. I haven't seen modern day books that talk about this stuff to the extent and level that these books do. Like, to really, really, really delve into it. Like, Allan Kardec's book, my God, 163 years ago, he did this. And when you pick up books today on spirit mediums, it's more like their experiences. This happened and that happened, and I heard this, but then I got confirmation of that, and here's proof, here's evidence. But it's not the same of just asking spirits 1,020 questions, I mean, you have to have a very scientific and curious mind, and it seems to me that a lot of these guys were very curious and very scientific, and I'm grateful for that, because now we have the knowledge that they wrote down and preserved for all eternity. And I have never felt William Walker Atkinson with me while I'm reading his works. He's probably reincarnated already. Probably, maybe even twice since then. Let me ask, is he alive now? Yeah, he's alive on Earth right now. Is it me? Just kidding, it's not me. I know for a fact it's not. I asked just in case. Is this someone that we would know? Is this someone that works behind the scenes now? Does he read books or write books? No. He doesn't do that anymore. Is he spiritually interested? And God's saying, yeah, he's just meditating on his own, and he's like a secret light warrior, light worker. Is he a he? He's a she now. Hey. So yeah, no, he's not even doing anything. He's not out and about. He's not out loud telling anyone stuff anymore. He's just kind of on his own spiritual path and forging his way with the discipline of his own mind now, is what God's telling me. Is he a scientist now? Yeah, he's a scientist now. Wow. But he still believes in stuff, meditates. He's just a scientist doing his own thing. Is he like an engineer type of scientist? Like a doctor or medical? No. I'm trying to ask what kind of scientist. He's a biologist? Yeah, okay. He's a biologist right now. So interesting. He was a lawyer before and a metaphysician now. Or she is a biologist now. Interesting. That's what I get anyway. It's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. I know I've never written books in a past life, and I just feel like I haven't. But how weird would that be to be drawn to the material and pick it up and be reading it and like, wait a minute, I wrote this 113 years ago. That'd be a really trippy thought, wouldn't it? Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go contemplate the first lesson. We'll be back next Monday with an all-new lesson. And it's all going to be food for thought for sure. Anyway, that's it. That's all she wrote for tonight. I love each and every one of you, and I hope that that forgiveness lecture has helped you in one way or another. Hopefully I helped you alleviate yourself from your own guilt. That's like the heaviest thing that people carry around, like they don't forgive themselves. And they just carry that burden, or they don't forgive others. By the way, my mom told me once, she said, well, Grandma died. She's all pissed off. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Are you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just mad at her. I'm like, why? Well, she died and she didn't forgive our cousin who owed her $200 from like 30 years ago. I'm like, so? Well, that just means she's going to burn in the lake of fire forever, and that's totally on her. Whatever. I guess I'm just not going to see her in heaven. That's my mom. Like, lake of fire? What the hell is she talking about? It's like, I went my whole life going to church every Sunday. Never heard that until I met my mom when I was in my 30s. She'll burn in the lake of fire forever because she didn't forgive him. It says it in the Bible. I don't know. It didn't say that in the Bible I read, but maybe it did, and I just didn't read that part. Lake of fire. That's so strange. But yeah, I hope the forgiveness thing helped you. I don't believe in the lake of fire they'll burn you forever. I don't believe that, but my mom, she cracked me. Like, only my mom could be angry at somebody for dying. And then my grandma died of heart. She had like a hole in her heart that randomly occurred. And my mom's like, well, leave it to her to come up with some, unique and rare way to die so that she'd be put down in scientific books for all of eternity just so she could have the last laugh. She's probably the only woman in history ever died of a broken heart, literally. It's my mom. I think she hated her own mom. There's like a lot of unresolved issues. I love them both so much, but man, a lot of unresolved issues there. I don't know why I just bring this up right now. It's hilarious. It's funny to me that someone could be totally angry at someone for dying, like right after they die. Like usually the grief process, the anger like takes a while to get there. My mom was there like in like 2 seconds flat. She was just like, and then afterwards she said, I was so relieved when she died. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, this burden just lifted up off me. I just felt so alive and so happy. Oh my God. I don't know. It's like, my mom didn't raise me. I met her when I was 30. And before she died, my brother was always calling me with stories of how inappropriate she was in public. I mean, totally hilarious. Like, she'd just like burst out with things and blame people for getting cancer while she herself was waiting to get a cancer treatment. She would like be out loud, like aggressively out loud, like talking about people. And my brother said he was just like shrinking down into his chair, hoping no one would like hopefully it's not reflecting on him. Oh my God, my mom, jeez. I'm sure we all have mother stories. My kids have mother stories about me. So, I've had non-fine moments, moments where I was just not okay, was not acting okay in public. It happens. But anyway, so yeah, there we go. Ether. I mean, do you guys buy into the idea that there is ether? Now, there's this formless substance that other people talked about. They called it the formless substance, and then other people called it ether. So maybe there is something to this. Maybe it's something, the energy of subspace, kind of in between the dimensions, just below our dimension. I know when I do interviews on using the internet, I have to open up the subspace, and it's like I'm temporarily opening up a portal in the subspace so that you can hear the other person speak. A lot of my interviews are not coming out clearly because of this. I don't know, some kind of interference between me and them. And that's not even mental telepathy. That's just like directly talking over the electronics. I feel like there's a lot of interference from spirits that just don't want the information out. And so I have to like block all these beings between me and that person. So I imagine that there's like a big corridor and I'm holding it up, holding the sides up so that lest it collapse under the weight of the people who don't want the information out. It's crazy. I don't know why I think that, but anyway, I'm going to go, guys. I love you. I love you so much. Thank you for continuing to tune in and for having your continued confidence in me. And a shout out to Jude Dickoff, the founder of the Starseed Perspective podcast. He's also the host and editor, director, producer, just like I am in my own podcast. But he is one of my sponsors, and he has pledged to sponsor my show monthly. So I wanted to give a special thank you to you, Jude. I'm grateful for your doing this for me. And thank you to all of you that are considering it, and those of you who have done this in the past, and who want to do it in the future, or even now. Thank you in advance for helping me out. Because, I literally make 1 penny when you listen to the one ad I have. So I'm not making a whole lot of money here, guys. So if you want to sponsor me, I'm really, really grateful for the help. And if you can't now because of quarantine, I totally get it. Don't feel guilty. Guilt should never have any. It's a useless emotion. It helps you know when you've done something wrong, and then after that, it doesn't really serve you. Anyway, that's it. I'll be back tomorrow with all unique and original programming, just like always. But for now, I'm going to sign off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the Holy Fifth Dimension. Until next time, guys. Peace. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you.